Hey everyone, I'm Eduardo Norette. Thanks for coming to my channel and for watching this video. As always, if you like what you see, don't forget to give this video a like and of course, give my channel a subscribe. So welcome to another episode of The News Explained. By now you've likely heard or read about Elon Musk's efforts to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government with his DOGE team, the Department of Governmental Efficiency. He's been going around Washington, taking over federal buildings with his ragtag team of young engineers. They're reportedly locking senior officials outside of entire agencies. They're locking these people out of their computer systems. And sometimes they're even setting up camp. I mean, they're literally sleeping on the floors of these buildings until they can get the job done. So if you're like me and if you're tired of our government spending trillions and trillions of dollars on nonsense every year, which is contributing to inflation and increasing our national debt and really wasting our hard-earned taxpayer dollars, then obviously what Elon is doing is a great thing. And while he's beginning to uncover the extent of how much waste we have in government, I believe there are two specific areas he must target if he really wants to uncover the motherlode. First, the Department of Defense. Last year, Congress allocated nearly $900 billion in defense spending. That's nearly $300 billion more than the year when Trump first took office in 2017. And so we're constantly told by politicians in both parties that we have to rebuild the military's crumbling. Okay, but how many trillions of dollars and how many years of increased defense spending is it actually going to take to do that? I mean, is your life improved by increased defense spending? No. It's mainly benefiting defense contractors like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and others who get government contracts to prop up their businesses. So there's little argument that this is actually helping us, or even the other argument that it's making our country more secure. That's not happening. According to 60 Minutes, around half of the Pentagon budget goes to these contractors. So in effect, they're war profiteers. If there's no conflict, if there's no need for military spending, these companies would basically go out of business, or they would at least have lower profits. One problem in this area is there isn't enough competition in the industry. In the mid-1990s, there were over 50 major defense contractors. The government at the time urged these businesses to merge, and most of them did. So now, as a result, there's no competition, there's no leverage, there's a few big players that get to set the price points. And in doing so, they are price gouging. The incompetence of our government isn't fighting for best prices, they're not fighting to negotiate, they basically go along with it. Here's some examples. The Pentagon found Lockheed Martin and Boeing were, according to 60 Minutes, quote, grossly overcharging the Pentagon by hundreds of millions of dollars for the Patriot PAC-3 missiles. The Pentagon also paid a company called TransDigm nearly $120 million for parts that should have only cost $28 million. In 2018, the Air Force was found to have spent $1,300 for reheatable coffee cups. Last year, an Inspector General report found that Boeing overcharged the Air Force by 8,000% on soap dispensers. So the government had overpaid by $150,000. I could go on. But to give you some perspective on this, the US is spending more on defense than the next 9 countries combined. We spend more than China, Russia, India, South Korea, and Japan put together. And look, I'm not arguing that we let these other countries take the lead necessarily. But again, it's not unreasonable to ask how any of this is benefiting the United States. I mean, have Americans gotten richer because of our military might? Are we parading around the world, taking resources from other countries where our military's at? Are we forcing other countries to pay us for their defense? No, we're not doing any of those things. Take, for instance, China. Look, the Chinese would love nothing more than to overtake the United States militarily. And in many ways, they're starting to do that. And so if they're able to do that on a fraction of our budget, what does that say about what we're currently doing? What does that say about our defense contractors, about our leaders in Washington who are supposed to advocate for this type of thing and to push back on Chinese aggression? So anyway, look, I'm hoping this is something Elon can take a look at and show where Americans are overpaying on defense. And the second area I think Elon and DOGE need to examine, which reportedly they already have plans to do, is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of these welfare spendings. Now, to be clear, I'm not advocating for them to go in and cut legitimate benefits for Americans or Americans who are rightfully eligible for these programs. And Elon himself, to his credit, has said this is not what he's doing, despite what the Democrats and the media are trying to imply. So what is Elon targeting? Well, here's one example.
Cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone that's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out.
Yes, there are dead people on Social Security and Medicare rolls, and there are criminals claiming improper benefits. And so how many people are out there doing this, to the tune of how much money? That's part of the problem. The politicians we elect to oversee this type of thing haven't bothered to look in the last 20 or 30 years. And it's part of what Elon and his team are trying to find out. And according to some preliminary data they have apparently seen, Musk says there's $100 to $200 billion a year being sent overseas in these fraudulent schemes. And if you think about it, it's not really that hard to believe either. I mean, take COVID, for example. In 2022, NBC News and several other news outlets were reporting on what they called, quote, the biggest fraud in a generation. Their stories were about how international criminal fraud rings took advantage of easy government loopholes to steal hundreds of billions of dollars in COVID relief through the Paycheck Protection Program and COVID unemployment and other disaster relief programs. And so when you consider those numbers and the fact that they weren't even being done by people in the United States, it's astounding. It's insane. Some of these fraudsters were caught buying luxury vehicles, mansions, and private jets. And sadly, experts have estimated that most of these funds are unrecoverable. So imagine that. Hundreds of billions of dollars in the midst of what could have been a much worse crisis than we knew it ended up being. I mean, if you were around in the beginning of COVID and you remember, nobody knew that it was going to be, in effect, a bad flu. I mean, it could have been much worse. And here you had people stealing that aid that was supposed to keep our economy and small businesses afloat. And so if this is what they did with COVID, imagine what they're doing with Social Security and Medicare. Vice President J.D. Vance has noted this before, but there are some studies that say that there are millions of illegal immigrants with Social Security numbers in this country. Again, some from dead individuals, while others are simply stolen outright from hardworking Americans. And so these individuals, these illegal immigrants, along with just, I guess, regular criminals and regular fraudsters here domestically and overseas, are able to claim these benefits without being eligible. The Social Security Administration isn't even denying that this is happening, by the way. They kind of look at the numbers every year and publish reports. So in the most recent year available in 2022, the 2022 fiscal year, the Social Security Administration said that there was approximately $21 billion in overpayments. Again, $21 billion in benefits to people who were not authorized to receive them. And though the agency bragged about how, we were able to claw back $4 billion in those overpayments, the Social Security Administration admits that at least $12 billion of those overpayments are likely gone forever. They will not get that money back. So, how is this even possible? How can our government be this incompetent? Well, for one, as Elon Musk has found, these government agencies like the Treasury Department, which is processing these payments, they basically approve every single request that comes through. There is no mechanism to check for fraud or for duplicate numbers in the system, like duplicate Social Security numbers, for example. And it gets much worse than that. Musk recently claimed on X that his team believes there are, quote, over $100 billion per year in entitlements payments to individuals with no Social Security number or, quote, even a temporary ID number. $100 billion a year. And it's happening in Medicare, too. Musk's team has been at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services this week, attempting to get to the bottom of that agency, which is a whole other issue in and of itself. I, being from South Florida, can tell you that this is happening. South Florida is the capital of healthcare fraud in the United States. And I hate to say it, but it's true. It is tied to the fact that we have a high immigrant population here. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's this part of the Latin American culture where people sort of feel proud, like that they want to brag about it, that they've won something as if it's an achievement to cheat off the government. And it's been happening here for many years. If you don't believe me, even the DOJ says that half of all of their healthcare fraud prosecutions are filed in South Florida. So these individuals are stealing things like Medicare IDs, they're selling those on the internet, they're organizing these massive billing schemes. Here are just some of the top line numbers nationally when it comes to healthcare fraud. Last fiscal year rather, CMS reported over $30 billion in improper payments. That's actually less than what was reported the year before by the Department of Health and Human Services, which said Medicare had over $50 billion in improper payments. And so combined with Medicaid, it was over $100 billion in improper payments. So again, you take that number, you take Social Security, that is close to the $200 billion a year Elon is estimating. And though it's unclear how much of the improper healthcare payments are actually overpayments, we do know that some other independent estimates indicate that they are. So for example, the Schaefer Center at the University of Southern California found that overpayments in 2023 amounted to $75 billion. So regardless of what you think of any of this, regardless of whether we will be able to find out who's behind this, or whether or not we'll even be able to get the money back, the point is your money is getting stolen, and it has been getting stolen for years, and it's only going to continue. The government, the people we elect to purportedly stop this type of thing, they haven't even figured out or even bothered to stop it. I mean, I can't remember the last time before Trump was around that any elected member of government went out there and said, we need to combat waste, fraud, and abuse. It's almost like it hasn't even been in the lexicon for the last 20, 30 years. Instead, it's taken someone like Elon Musk and his team of DOGE engineers to figure it out. And for trying to get to the bottom of it, for trying to do something that benefits every single hardworking American out there, he's getting attacked, and in some cases, sued to stop his search for the fraud. And so I try to ask myself, why could that be? Why would anyone attack an effort to fight fraud? And then there's another part of me that says, well, the simplest and the most obvious explanation is the most likely. And the only reason that I could think of that a politician would object to uncovering these massive fraud and overpayment schemes is because they or their allies are a part of it. Sorry. I mean, there's just no other explanation. Maybe it's their donors getting kickbacks. Maybe it's constituents. Maybe it's, as we've seen, some of these 501c3 charitable organizations that are embedded with these agencies that do good work on behalf of them when really they're paying their entire boards huge six-figure salaries. I truly have no idea. I mean, I don't know what the non-criminal argument is for, hey, we shouldn't be looking for fraud. But what I do know is this. The scale of this fraud, again, to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars a year, is unlike anything we've ever seen, and it's growing. Elon and DOGE might be the last best chance to put a stop to it. All right, thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like if you want to see more content like this. We'll see you next time.